177. Let's see if I'm on here. Oh my gosh, all the pictures are different. Um, okay, so, and I know I posted that up quite a bit today, but that's okay because that information needs to get out. Let's see if I'm live. It doesn't look like I'm live. Did I miss something? See if I missed something. Yesterday I had a little glitch too. There it goes. Yep. Okay. All right. We are good to go. I can see your thank you so much, Kathleen. I see you. Thank you. Okay, so um we've been answering a lot of questions from media, and we don't trust media too much. We just don't. They haven't really earned our trust, right? And they um, they seem many of them seem to do the will of whoever is paying them. Of course they would, of course. But something is very, very wrong when we provide public funding so that an organization, a media, can remain neutral and really give an accurate report of what's going on. And that's the case with El Paso Matters. But El Paso Matters is owned by El Paso Community Foundation. And they are really in disguise. They're in disguise of their tax-free status and their charitable, and I'm sure maybe they've been forced to do some charity, to stay undercover. But uh, what's going on underneath is pretty rotten. Is pretty rotten. So we had Bob Moore of El Paso Matters try to hijack our son's story about receiving the notice of death, right? And really hijack his whole story and put out all this false narrative um, by twisting things. And it really is an art how they can take uh, a story and manipulate it so that it will lead people to think a certain way that they want them to think. And so Bob Moore never called us to give a statement for it. He never even asked to use Richard's picture. And so we wanted to address what is really going on in Richard's case, because there is so much. Let me bring up my notes a little bit here. And, you know, what is failed to mention in all of these stories is really obvious proofs that Richard was murdered. And they're obvious. They're obvious. The delay in contacting us, that, they didn't even contact us. Let's just say that. The delay in us finding out about our son. And we knew from the very beginning that he had been murdered. And it took 4 years. 4 years. Because of the interference, the blocking. We know that there was even blocking from Major General Clem Coward. We know that because all you have to do, and this takes a lot of time, but you have to take all of these little pieces of evidence and you have to make a time chart. You make a time chart. Time stamps are the foundation of the judicial system. They are the foundation. With timestamps, when things happen, how they happen, where they happened, everything when they happened, where they happened, right? The timestamps are the foundation of any judicial system. And so to put together a timeline and to see what was happening when, it paints a picture. It paints a picture, and the picture is that Richard was murdered. And, uh, you know, one of the things is there is not one piece of evidence, even though he lived in the barracks, right? But there's not one piece of CCTV footage, uh, a, let's say, some guard, right? Some kind of security guard, or even another witness that saw Richard leave. And this is Fort Bliss, and Fort Bliss has surveillance cameras everywhere. And yet there are gaps in the surveillance cameras, and there's no evidence whatsoever of Richard leaving Fort Bliss on his own. So, what does that tell you? That tells you that he was murdered on Fort Bliss. So when they say, oh, you can't say that, no, and this is not the only evidence that shows that, but if they showed him leaving, if they showed him in a car with some other people or whatever, then that would be evidence, but they have none. You see? So the crime was committed on Fort Bliss, and for a long time there, we absolutely entertained the idea that Richard was kidnapped, abducted, stuck in a car, and then driven over to Mexico to be killed. But there's no evidence for that. So we can't entertain that idea for too long, right? I mean, there is maybe a doubt, but we're working with things that are beyond a reasonable doubt. And so Richard has to be on Fort Bliss because there's no evidence showing him leaving Fort Bliss. And that's very important. Then also, the official CID report is so wishy washy with who was where when. And that whole CID report is so bad. It is so bad because it has been manipulated, clearly manipulated. Things sanitized, meaning they did not mention things that needed to be put in there. We've worked on that for a long time, going through that report so that we can, and that's good. This is good timing because CID Agent Howell needs to look for Richard's remains now, right? Because we have a declaration, we have a notice of death, and now we need to find Richard's remains. This is where the investigation needs to be. But that CID is even involved in this, they shouldn't be because they absolutely are criminally involved in this case. So they can't be investigating their criminal involvement, just like Bob Moore can't be writing a story about Richard when he is a party to this case. So he's not an independent journalist, and he doesn't even tell people in the story that he's a party to this case, right? So it's obvious that there is so many people trying to backpedal or manipulate everything, that this is proof that a very, very serious crime. And Richard, where is Richard? There is no financial record. There's no contact with us, nothing for these almost 4 years. So that is also proof that he has been murdered. The other thing is we have a testimony from a unit member that said he saw Richard being forcibly removed from the barracks. Okay? Now, that didn't get into the report. Why? Why? That's really important that a gang goes into Richard's barracks room. How did they even get in there, right? Well, with Dallas Hart being the platoon leader, that's very easy. He has access, right? So, but to to have him being pulled out um, forcibly against his will is very, very important in all of this when we put it all together. Um, so those are, the those that say that Richard walked away um, were found to be liars, right? Were found to be liars. And absolutely, Jay Pollan is found to be a liar. The escort who was supposed to be Richard's security guard, because Richard was a whistleblower. This is another huge, huge proof that Richard was murdered, because he was a whistleblower, and the security guard wasn't there, and they called it, oh, he was complacent, right? I mean, they wanted us to believe that it was something else, and that never. Well, we've already debunked all of that, and they still try to put that out there. But Richard being a whistleblower is very obvious. We have Bullen saying it. We have others saying it. We have another soldier saying the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. We have Brigadier General Stewart corroborating that. We have uh, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe corroborating that. We have the CID Marlon Soto, even if he's dirty, he was corroborating that major things were happening. And, like the soldier said, the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. And of course, then we have the unjust retaliation. The unjust retaliation that never was apologized for. Richard was never restored, even though the case was dismissed, even though Jesus Melendez is now shown to be illegal in what he did, right? An unjust um, stop, an unjust stop. You can't just stop anybody. You have to have probable cause. And, Texas lays all of that out. And, upon research, you find out that Jesus Melendez, the canine cop who has conflicts of interest that made the traffic stop at midnight in a well-lit parking lot, um, was not telling the truth. Oh, he's really out of it. Richard clearly wasn't out of it. Clearly in the video wasn't out of it. Um, and so, you know, and very respectful. It showed his character. The video was absolutely amazing from him. And so he's their worst nightmare because he's a good guy. He's an all in all good guy. And what really gets me is that they've been doing this to so many other people, and they'll pick weakness, you know, and they'll smear them to no end and dehumanize them, and they get swept into the dustbin. And that's just so despicable to me. It is so despicable. And so this is, marching us forward with Richard, that we have this opportunity to expose this criminal network that wants to, anyone that gets in their way, they want to prey on their weakness and do them in, and do them in. And I just think that's so despicable. So, but getting back to Richard, the surveillance footage is very, very concerning because that means that the suspicion was then on Thomas Kane because he had control over uh, the surveillance footage. And then we find out that Leilani Hart has a very close relationship, and she is the prime suspect. And so it's like, okay, wow. So that really makes her a prime, a very prime suspect in the murder of our son. But could she be? Could she be violent? Could she go along with murdering a soldier? Could she do that? And then you find out that she has a long history, a long, not just a history, but it is it's a record. She has a long criminal record of violence, of lying to law enforcement. And then on top of that, she has her affidavit where her family is totally violent. I mean, incest is unbelievable violent. Rape of a 7-year-old in her master bedroom um, by multiple members of her household is incredibly, absolutely despicable, worthy of death sentence to me. That's how violent that is. So you know, all of this, all of this is uh, really, really violent. And there's guns being bought illegally, and then threats, and then all of a sudden we get from we get information. We talk to the victims, and the victims are all saying, "Oh my gosh, she is crazy." I didn't say she was crazy. A whole bunch of other people said she's crazy, and very violent, very violent. And then we hear about Etty, and we know a lot about Etty. That's her oldest son, that has this very, very mysterious death. Okay, very mysterious. And anytime there is a mysterious death, people go, "Oh, that was a suicide," and they just brush it off. They don't even do their job to check on it. Oh, it's just suicide. But there is a lot of things surrounding the death of Etty. Um, that that doesn't make sense. It's kind of like with Richard. And then we hear someone say, and I wouldn't be surprised if his mother had something to do with it, right? So what am I saying? I'm not saying that she had anything to do with it. What I'm saying is that somebody thought she would be violent enough to do something like that. Okay? That there is this propensity to violence. That's what, you have to ask yourself. If she is a suspect, does she fit the uh, the human being? Uh, does she check off those qualifications? And she does. She does with flying colors. And so and Etty's death is very, very fishy, very fishy. So, and then how could she get away with connections? Well, she has the connections with the General Clem Coward, right? She has the connections with Thomas Kane, the Director of Emergency Services. She has the connection with Tavita Nusa, the dirty agent in the CID there. She has the connections in the VA. So does she have the connections? And the answer is yes. So the evidence, however you want to frame it, if it is hard evidence to you, circumstantial evidence to you, or irregularities to you, the evidence always to that Richard was murdered, and we have suspects, and the suspects have been named. We're not hiding who we think. I mean, if I want to say, and oh yeah, by the way, um, we're getting intelligence that there was a confession already. These plea deals, and that there was a confession already. And we'll talk more about that as the information comes in. And because we're very busy behind the scenes, because we have to look for legal help, right? We have to look for legal help with all the paperwork. We have to look for trusted legal help, or legal help that have a firm foundation, that's not afraid to be bullied and retaliated, because we have been constantly bullied and retaliated, harassed, and everything through all of this. So they're obstructing justice by, you know, um, having to explain that there's risk in helping Team Find Richard. I think that's very important. No. So because of the lack of trust, because of the lack of um, response to clearing up the criminality that's going on, uh, you know, so we absolutely have a little bit. I had that dream of digging up potatoes, and I'm working on this dream interpretation of that, um, and and I'll share that with you the next couple days as I get that back. But um, it really is interesting, because that's good news. I hear good news when you dream about potatoes. So you might have a rotten potato in there occasionally. You might have some stones in there. Um, in my dream, I had some flowing water, which was interesting. And so, I'll wait until I get the results back. But it was just a very, very vivid dream. And I think that there are obstacles on the way, or maybe not everything you're getting back um, is something good, right? And of course, in Richard's case, what we're getting back is a notice of death. And but at the same time, we're digging potatoes, and people are starting to come forward. Oh yeah, they know he's dead now. They know he's dead now. But did you know this? There was a confession. There was a plea deal. There was a lawyer involved with Bob Moore, with Leilani Hart. Did you know this? Did you know that? And so that information is coming in. And that's why Bob Moore tried to hijack Richard's story, because he's trying to control the story and control the narrative. Because the more this story gets out, that Richard was a whistleblower, that he was exposing the sex trafficking, the kid trafficking, the gun trafficking. And I'm saying it like that right now because this is how some of the responses came back. Oh, yeah, uh, the sex trafficking, the kid trafficking, the gun trafficking. And, so I think we need to focus on Richard, finding Richard's remains, and that absolutely there is motive, and there is proof after proof have to that he was murdered. And we need the most people, we need so many people putting that out there because all the evidence is beyond a reasonable doubt. And this is something that I've read over and over again, and speaking with these lawyers, trying to find different lawyers and stuff like that. You might not be 100%, right? There's always like a little doubt. We all, most of the time, we all have like a little doubt here, a little doubt there. But when the evidence is pointing and pointing and pointing, and it is beyond a reasonable doubt, which absolutely we have so much evidence that is beyond a reasonable doubt, then you know that he was murdered. So you don't have to really depend on your psyche to accept it 100%. You have to let the evidence point to it. And a crying Captain Yoshida at the beginning is evidence to that, right? And the lies that were coming in from those that are suspects to the case. Jay Pollan is a total suspect in this case. And so, and what he said to us at that time on the 3rd of September 20, forget it, was so upsetting, but it was a lie. It was absolute lie. There was maybe a little truth in there here and there, but for the most part, it was a lie. And, they're just trying to drive the narrative. And he did not want us to come. I have the screenshots to prove it. He did not want us to come to El Paso. Well, I understand why. Because he's up to no good in this case with Richard. So, and don't forget this history of violence, history of confrontation between Dallas and Richard. Now, that needs to be investigated. This is this huge lead coming in. And they won't answer us about that because we have the time that Richard was in the hospital, and that wound is a defensive wound. It's when you put your arm up and somebody had a knife and it was superficial. It was absolutely a defensive wound. And then Jay Pollan went to go visit him when he was retired. He was retired and he went to go visit him. Yeah. Not. I mean, yeah, he went to go visit him. I believe that. But that is very, very suspicious. Very suspicious. And then he lied to us about what was going on. Absolutely. So, Jay Pollan is another suspect, y'all. He's another suspect. So let me read some of these. Following this, since you started, my heart goes out to you. CID is corrupt. We have our own experience with them. Prayers, you get all answers you're looking for. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much. Was going to ask you about the guy that was watching Richard. Exactly. He didn't show up. But nothing happened to him. That's what they keep saying. Well, that's interesting because when you have security detail, we're just wondering, why didn't they check his bank account? Did he get paid not to come in that day? I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. So it's just proof, when you have even these little incidences like that, every crumb. We have so much crumbs, and we've been putting the bread back together again, and it absolutely paints a picture or bakes a bread or puts together a bread that says murder. Okay? It doesn't say anything else. It says murder. Because if they had the cameras working and they showed us some footage, they don't. They don't, or they do and they don't show us, right? Bring forth the platoon leader. That's always the big thing. Oh, Dallas Hart wasn't the platoon leader. We have so much evidence that he was a platoon leader. And then that questions the whole phone thing, because we know that Richard um, had his phone taken away. You know, this big thing with the lost. Um, that is turning out to be, we got information that was misleading. And then we went to go look up the names of those who were giving us the misleading information, and they have conflicts of interest, y'all. So they are all unreliable sources. So this is like Danae's and Leilani Hart's and Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia's and other people's relatives in, connected to this case. And they were feeding us at the beginning false information for us to tell people false information. And, so we've learned a lot over these years. And, um, I'm not saying we're perfect, but we absolutely, unless we're getting false information or no information, this is something that I said, well, we kind of brainstormed a little bit about this one reporter that was putting out, and he's like, well, I have to let the Army tell their side. And we're like, the Army doesn't have a side. What does the Army have? They have a notice of death for Richard, and they have confirmed that they don't have his body, that his body is still missing. That's their side of the story. What more are they going to say? Do they have any witnesses? Do they have any CCTV footages? Do they have anything? Where's the platoon leader? They don't even have a platoon leader. We have a platoon leader. His name is Dallas Hart. He was Richard's platoon leader. So, they just don't have anything. And they are taking false stories, and they are manipulating them and trying to tell you that this is what's going on. But from his health record to the crossing at the border to the dismissed case, all that points to is retaliation, y'all. Is retaliation, bullying, violence, harassment of Richard by his command, by those that were obligated to care for him. That's what all of them are pointing to. And I think that's very important for everyone to know. So please share this. Please share this. I see that in the video. Wish I could help you behind the scenes with you. Oh, thank you, Kathleen. I wish so too. We need to find the kids. Yeah, absolutely. 85,000 missing children. I knew exactly what she was talking about. And that's only from 2021 and 2022. The numbers out of 2023 are horrendous. And when I get a roundabout exact number, then I will tell you. So we're working on that, too. Absolutely, Richard wanted to be CID. He was aspiring to be an agent in the Criminal Investigative Division. He was all about law enforcement, y'all. He was all about law enforcement and all those shows with, getting the murderer. And we have that confirmed by paperwork and by Marlon Soto. Marlon Soto knew Richard wanted to be CID. Okay? That's on record too. Um, so he absolutely, my point is he absolutely would protect children. Not be like these other, like Leilani Hart reported her family, incestual child torture, which, when you're sexually assaulting a child, that's child torture. Yes. Has anyone looked into what Richard was trying to tell? So we've been looking into it quite a bit, and what this notice of death is going to help us do is look into it better, because now we get to step into Richard's shoes. But we have, um, I don't think it's been a week yet, and we've had to really um, cry, tell family, talk to family, talk to our very, very close friends, um, make posts for all of our loved ones that have been supporting us in Team Find Richard Halliday. Also, putting out uh, the true narrative of what we know, what's going on in Richard's case. And, it's been very, very, and then get all the paperwork and then try to find some lawyers, legal help. We need the legal help going forward. And so this is, this has been really a whirlwind, whirlwind. So we will look into um, all of what he was trying to report. That is really important, because we believe from all the information from almost 4 years, it is about sex trafficking, kid trafficking, and weapons trafficking, gun trafficking. Yes. Thank you so much, Kathleen. Yes, and the kids that are on the base are under an ogle, and they're in danger. They're in danger. Um, uh, she is also up to no good. Absolutely no. And she's in charge of CYS. She was in charge of the well being of the children in that intake center. Why she hasn't been removed, I don't know. She was also teaching at Park University. Um, yeah, she is not good. Nope. Nope. And we pay too much money. We need to remove those that are not doing their job well. If one child was injured, there needed to be an investigation. Well, we have 85,000 and more. Yeah. Hi, Grace. Thank you for coming on. So, so we absolutely know that Richard was murdered because we have so many proofs. And when you put all of those proofs together, that's the picture. That's the picture that you have. And there's no doubt, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's why I can say it. I can say it because it's so obvious. It's right in front of us. I mean, just think of, I didn't even mention Captain uh, Parks, right? Letter, you remember that? You know, and now we're starting to get all this information coming in about the Harts and their violence, suspicions of a previous murder. Um, yeah, you know, that would not be happening. There would be, I've mentioned Leilani Hart's name and Dallas Hart's name and uh, Tavita Nusa over and over and over again as key suspects in the murder of Richard Halliday, right? Do you think there would be one character letter, right? Where's everybody crying out saying, "Oh no, you got the wrong people." No, they couldn't do that. No, they're just wonderful people. No, you don't have any of that. That in itself is evidence because we had testimony. We had letter upon letter upon letter, and we put that out. That's still on TikTok. That's still out there. Character letters of Richard. We had one written in his own hand. Where is a letter written in Dallas Hart's hand? Right? We have a tampered with um, travel voucher. That means they manufactured evidence, which is also criminal, which is also another proof that Richard was murdered because they felt like they had to manufacture evidence. And then Rob's missing persons report in Juarez, Mexico at the AG office there was tampered with. That's also proof, to make Richard sound like he's a criminal. We didn't make Richard sound like a criminal. So it was tampered with. And they took advantage of us. And so that's proof that they were trying to find any way to interfere in the search, in the investigation of Richard, which means Richard was murdered. And Danae is huge proof. And Boleyn, oh my gosh, Boleyn is huge proof. And remember I told you that she's involved, okay, in this, but she didn't have a close relationship with Richard. I know that Richard cared about her, but it was not a close relationship because she couldn't tell me one story. Not one story. So it's like how Richard cared about the children. And don't forget, he was reporting sex trafficking, child trafficking, kid trafficking, I should say. And then, of course, the gun trafficking. And, that's really where it's at, in my opinion. But he absolutely confronted her. And he also, I rather burn my money than spend it on whores and blow. Don't do it. Don't do it, Boleyn. They say they respect you, but they don't. They don't. Those women, they don't. So who are those women? Leilani Hart, Amber Chase, right? Who are those women? Oh yeah, Danae Katzen. Oh yeah, I got to feed my family. All this stuff. And Richard's like, no, he was warning her. He was warning her that there's other things that are better. And I don't think that they liked that, because I think that their sex trafficking was a big money maker. And yeah, and that's funny because he's saying don't do it, and the guys, they're just horny. They just want to see you naked. And then Marlon Soto is like, oh well, putting these labels on Richard, and I'm like, okay, where's the evidence? We've got evidence to the contrary, that he's whistleblowing, that he turned in those tapes, that he called up CPS, that he called 911 calling out for help, that he called Washington, D.C., that he called Houston FBI, which is child trafficking. But we didn't know that at the beginning. We're like, okay, what's going on here? It has taken 4 years to do the job that they should have been doing. And it took the Army 4 years to give us that notice of death that we knew on day one. Why? Because of interference in the investigation by the CID, especially, and we know that because of Interpol. I haven't even said Interpol. That picture to Interpol is also indication that Richard was murdered. So how many crumbs do we need? How many pieces of evidence do we need to be beyond a reasonable doubt? I have enough. I'm beyond a reasonable doubt. I know Richard was murdered. And Tavita Nusa is a prime suspect because he's the dirty CID inside man. And Richard's platoon leader was Dallas Hart. And I told him right over the phone, did you know that you're a suspect for the murder of our son? And he said yes, he knew that. But this is the whole thing with the N-word. They, when you have friends like Major General Clem Coward, who has friends, upward and that, and, you're part of a criminal network that's making loads of money, then you feel like you're untouchable. That you can just admit to everything, that you can act vile and vulgar, that you can use the N-word, and that you are at no risk of losing your job. But you know what? Dallas Hart was removed from the Army. He was separated from the Army. Clem Coward was separated. He was removed. He was removed. Call it what you want. It was a little sneaky little trick there. But we're a military family. We know how things work. He was removed. And Tavita Nusa lost his badge. We have that confirmed with hard evidence. And he also was separated from the military. Right in the middle of his wonderful military career. And for Dallas Hart, right after he makes green to gold, lieutenant colonel, a platoon leader, first lieutenant, whatever, and then he's going to do all that, and then he's just going to be separated? No. And now we're getting information in that there was a confession. Plea deals. Because they didn't want another Vanessa Guillen. They weren't upfront with the Guillen family either. They didn't tell the Guillen family what was going on until they absolutely had to. And they didn't want another Vanessa Guillen, even though they designated Richard as the first Vanessa Guillen under those new the new flow chart, right? And they had another Vanessa Guillen case on their hand. So that's and another thing too is I wish people would have went into the meetings, like you were all little miniature people, hiding on my shoulder or whatever, and went into those meetings and you would see them shake. And to keep the first sergeants away from us, I never met Ruggiero. He could bully me. He could tell lies. They could plot behind the scene. They could do their little magic, whatever they were doing, because she's like some witch or whatever. They could collude, whatever. But they didn't have to meet with us. What's that about? That tells you that Richard was murdered. And where was Paulin? Right? And where was David Park? He was there. Why didn't he meet with us? So, yeah, there's just so many little crumbs in all of this. And the point is that it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Because we even have the forensics that they won't say yay or nay with. And the forensics, they say there was trouble. There was trouble. So, yeah, they're just trying to, with the media, that's been a big deal right now. And so what I would ask for help is take Richard's stories off of Find Richard Halliday. Share them. Forward them. Like them. Comment on them. We don't have anything monetized. Bob Moore, through El Paso Matters, has broken his tax-exempt status. He is a party to this case. He cannot be an independent journalist at all. And he tried to hijack our son's story and tried to feed El Paso more misrepresentations, if I want to be legally right? And I think with the whole Walmart case thing and the whole COVID thing, I think El Pasoans have been fed enough misrepresentations. It's time for some truth. And, we have to check and check and check. But I think you'll get the truth through what we're posting. And, so if you can share those, if you can comment, if you can like, and let people know, because there's a criminal network that's up to no good in El Paso. Today, for example, the DA came out, and he is an illegal DA. El Paso right now has an illegal DA. He's a usurper in the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office. And he came out today with a capital murder case that he gave, I think, 20-something years for. It was the most despicable. They plea dealed it out. Why? Because there's a problem. He is a mess because he's illegal, and he's that whole thing. But there's another aspect to this. The medical examiner, the chief medical examiner, is illegal. He violated his visa. This is a $438,000 a year job, 753% more than the average working person in El Paso. And he cannot even do his job properly. He is botching every case right now. Every case. That's what that means. Everybody in a capital murder case right now can walk. Okay, so you do this horrendous murder and they plead deal. Can you imagine when he gets into prison and someone that knows the law a little bit is going to look at him and say, "What, you plea dealed? You idiot. You could have walked because the DA is illegitimate and the chief medical examiner is illegally in this country. And he can't even hold that position unless he's an American citizen. So, even if he was legal, even if but see, he violated his visa. So I don't know how he can get another visa. My son-in-law is South Korean. He had to get a legal visa to enter the country and to work. During COVID, it was so bad, he had to go back home. He had to go back to Korea to work. I understand this about the visas, and you have to get in line, and it takes time, and you have to honor your visa, your agreement. He did not do that. We have them. We have these documents. So that's why, I think the things that have been exposed also triggered that they finally give us that notice of death. Because right now, the legal system for El Pasoans, there is none. And you get a very violent criminal, and if they have a lawyer friend, which a lot of these do, Leilani has a lawyer friend, an LDS lawyer friend, with Bob Moore. And, when all that breaks, people are going to be like, what the heck? What the heck? But if you're a criminal, you can do your dirty deeds with impunity right now. And there should be an outcry. So ends. A total outcry. And, I was just got a glimpse of this movie that was playing. And I didn't finish it or anything like that. But there's no time, right? There's no time. But in passing, I'm watching this a little bit. And it was about this Northern Ireland American kind of like undercover, and it's about a little terrorist activity in there. And I'm forgetting the point that I wanted to make that was so good. Um, oh, she didn't know he had another wife. He had two more kids. She just didn't know, right? And I forgot the point I was trying to make. It's too late. I'm burning the midnight oil, even if it's a little early. Um, but it'll come back to me. But yeah, with this whole thing in El Paso, um, her relative is telling her, I just remembered again, that she shouldn't pursue the justice about what happened with, the crime, and that she didn't know about her husband and all his second family and all of that she shouldn't pursue it. Some things are left undone. And I'm watching it, and I think about 4 years ago, I would have bought that. I would have said, oh, yeah, we shouldn't pursue justice. we shouldn't pursue righteousness because justice and righteousness are synonymous, right? And I think all of us had have that told to them, in their family because of this TV, this hypnosis that, oh, okay, this crime happened and we shouldn't really pursue it. You know, I said that is a psyop. Who's running these movies? Who's writing these scripts? I think it's the criminal network because they don't want us to pursue it. They don't want us to dig deep and demand justice and demand that the army who has our son's remains gives us our son's remains. They had Vanessa's. They need to give us ours. And I didn't even go into Nadal Baim. And we know that they have our son's remains. And yet they say they don't. And, so we demand justice here. We demand accountability. We demand our son's remains. And all of that needs to be checked. If it's just a few people that are, filling out papers wrong or whatever, and they're like, oh no, we don't have it. Well, you need to check again. You need to check again and again and again. And you need to figure this out. And you need to get rid of these corrupt individuals in these particular, we need a proper medical examiner, right? We need a proper DA. Every district needs that. Every county needs that. And especially with this flow of individuals that they want to cause chaos, especially since you got some things going on in the universities that they don't even want to nip in the bud. And that violence overspills. It grows and it spills over into our neighborhoods and into our area. So we absolutely need to pursue justice. We need to righteousness. Don't listen to anybody that says don't do it. Oh, it's left. It's left. Better left that those criminals get away with it. Nope. Nope. I don't agree with that. I think we need to establish justice, pursue it. People go, oh, you need to pursue happiness. I say pursue justice, righteousness, and establish it. I think that's a much better strategy in having a nice, peaceful, happy life. So, you're right. He lost his crossing pass. Okay, let me see. Oh, you're right. He lost his crossing pass. I looked that one up. Who lost his crossing pass? Oh, Tavita Nusa, huh? Got it. Oh yeah, I wish you were just right there sitting on my shoulder watching that whole meeting. It was a sight to behold because there was no operational order for one of them, right? For the task force find Richard Halliday, which I guess included all of them, right? There was no operational order. And no signatures, no paperwork, no stamps, no time stamps, everything had to be very generic without any order. And to me, that means there's a cover up going on, and that is more proof that Richard was murdered. So thank you so much, everyone. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Thank you. Please share. Bye bye.